Hello, thanks for watching. This week it's Rishi Sunak's turn. Thought I'd do someone a bit closer to home. So obviously the British Prime Minister. I'm on a roll with politicians at the moment. And I've made some discoveries today about Rishi, his past, who he is, as well as a character. It's a bit of a surprise in some ways, a bit of a surprise. And also what's in store for him. I've made a bit of a discovery, possibly. It's not, ironclad. It's not extremely profound, but it did shock me a little bit. So stay tuned for that. I'll reveal that at the end of the video. There we go. There's my sly way of getting you to hang in there like the fish that you are. I'm only joking. Right, but seriously, stick around. So his overall character, I mean, he's a bit of a mixed palm. He's got quite a long palm. It's on the rectangular-ish side, say ish, because there's a bit of a triangular element going onto it as well. It's longer than it is wide, certainly. His fingers, and I've done the maths here, I've looked at lots of pictures and measured his fingers against the length of his palm. His Saturn finger is only just short. So his fingers are short, and so he's a fire hand, really, if you wanted to pin it down to one of the four of Fred Getting's system. But I don't really think that's completely reliable here because we've got a mixed hand now. In all of his images that I could find, pretty much anyway, look at his thumb. It's high set and it's always inward. And this shows us someone who is quite selfish, actually, quite sort of unable to see the wider picture of the many sort of variables that occur in the bigger issues in the world, which is not actually a great sign in a leader. You know, you would hope that someone who's at the top of things would be able to see, just how and why things are so. But he's unable to see the wider issues in the world because he's actually, sort of quite mean-spirited. He's a bit of a Scrooge, basically. He's not generous, and his headline and his heart line actually are see again. Look, the thumb is high set, it's inward, but the space between his heart line and his headline is quite wide. So that's cool. That balances out and counterbalances some of this selfishness a little bit. So that's nice. And so he comes across as a very sort of welcoming and open, positive person. However, if you're stuck in a rut, probably not going to help you out financially. It's not going to lend you a tenner if you needed it. His heart line is on the straightish side, as is his headline as well. So we've got someone who's, generally speaking, he's very grounded, I suppose. I don't know, it's kind of a vague word. Emotionally speaking, he's not going to let his emotions govern his decision making, and he's not a typical male in so much as he's not going to be aroused by visual stimuli. He's not the best lover in terms of the bedroom. I wouldn't have thought, but however, he does love his wife. I'm certain of that. He very much loves his wife. I think this man would do anything for his wife. He's far more devoted to his wife than his country. And I should explain why, really. I say that because of the marriage line and the loyalty line. So the marriage line, or more appropriately named the relationship line, he's got two of them. That's kind of chunky, isn't it? He's got one down here, so this was early on in life, and then this second one up here. Now the second one is deep, seriously deep, which shows how much he cares about this person, how much the relationship means to him. And then also, we can't really see it in this image here, but he does have a very strong loyalty line, and it comes from the family ring here, and Venus is this place of the home and friendships and stability and love and relationships and all sort of things pleasurable, the simple pleasures of life, and the things that Rishi appears to find pleasurable are quite hard to pin down. Numbers, he is a big numbers man. In fact, but before we move on, so the loyalty line that I've seen in another image in his palm, here we go, it says left palm. It's more appropriate because it's the left palm shows how we feel. I don't know if Rishi is actually left or right-handed, and that does have some sort of impact here on the reading. But here is the loyalty line, and you can see that it doesn't come over and affect the lifeline. It's, not quite as long. It shows that his loyalty is closer to home. It doesn't go further, it doesn't reach quite reach his sort of environment. So it shows, for these two reasons, the intensity of the marriage line, the relationship line on his right hand, and then the loyalty on his left. It shows us that actually this is a person who is extremely devoted to his wife, and I say, I think he's more devoted to his wife than his country. So he's a bit of a practical person. I mean, generally speaking, it's a squarish, it's a rectangularish palm. So people with palms which have quite sort of 90-degree angles to them are practical and rational, logical, fact-driven people. And but there is a sort of spatulate element to it, so it's sort of longer at the top than it is at the bottom, so a broad top spatulate palm. And people like this are sort of ideas driven, and there's a very sort of airish element to his palm because of this, because the fingers appear long and also they're very outwards, and with a squarish element. So he's a mixture of fire and air, really. But what this means is he's quite enthusiastic with his ideas. He's quite zealous with his ideas, and because his Saturn finger is not actually long, I suppose that also means there's a possibility here for him to sort of go against the grain. In fact, to go against the ideas, the laws and rules set out, and to go against these things, to push his ideas through. And I think he would rebel against society if only he had a bit more sort of conviction. So you see here, notice, and I'll get to this. This is a good sign, but notice just how sort of it's I don't want to say wasted, but in some images here it looks like there's a kind of a lack of conviction around his ideas, his logic. And often a person, and this is not an extreme measure, often a person with an extreme kind of broad top spatula palms are lots and lots of ideas, and they can they just sort of fire them out and see which ones stick, and a lot of the time they're not well thought through. They can be a bit half-baked. The differences between his left and right hand show that his Mercury it leans away. It sort of wants to be. It's sort of shying away from the rest. His ability to communicate is stronger on the right hand, it seems. And this kind of implies that actually he's not coping so well to communicate at home as he is in the office. He's more confident at work than he is at home, and that's kind of what it's showing. And the distance between his two middle fingers is always quite sort of spaced out, and this is kind of the typical hand of the loner. Really, if I had to sum up Rishi Sunak's hands, I would say that he is a bit of a loner. And he's a naturally gifted with numbers. He's a numbers man. And you wouldn't expect anything different, really, from the Chancellor of the Exchequer. But you can see here this knot, it's quite a large knot in his, in between the second and third phalange of Saturn. And you see it in other images. Here it is again. And this is typically the knot of the what's the word? Mathematician. I'm going to go with that one. I can't remember the name of the numericist. I don't know what the word is. He's a numbers man in any case, but he's more than that. It's is also the sign of a scientist. It's both having that ability to work with numbers and facts, and also look at the length of the tip of Mercury. By comparison to all of the other phalanges, it's just huge, and that really means he's the two in comparison show us a scientific mind. Is obviously very intelligent, and the thumb reaching up, almost reaching up to the second phalange of Jupiter as well. Obviously, that's because of the high set thumb, but this shows someone and the long headline as well. It reaches all the way down the palm, across the palm. All these signs here, show us that he's able to put numbers into action, to draw some sort of reality from facts, and to put those into action. But also, what really makes him good with numbers as well is just how rounded Saturn is as well. So all of these things combined, he's naturally hugely gifted with numbers, and this is where he excels. So in this image here, you can really see the differences between the left and the right palm, and I have checked out online whether or not he's right-handed or not. I typed in, is Rishi Sunak right-handed, and all I had were these comments about him being, saying right-wing things or left-wing that, all political statements, and then I just typed in images of Rishi Sunak writing to get my answer. He's right-handed, and if you notice, the Jupiter finger on the left, it doesn't quite reach past halfway the first phalanx of Saturn. So you can see it here, look, it's not quite long enough to be a natural leader. His confidence isn't, spectacular in himself anyway. I wouldn't say that he's an egotistical man, which is a good thing, really. And you can see how Jupiter kind of leans in towards Saturn. It relies on he's relying on his conscience to do the right thing. He's trying. And also, what this shows us as well is that he is looking inwards to make his decisions as well, towards his advisors and likely his wife as well. Interestingly, on the fact of on the point of him making decisions based on his sense of right and wrong, in this image, his thumb isn't actually so sort of inward. So it's almost like in this image, unconsciously, he's sort of thinking of others more. And if we look at the right hand, just to compare, Jupiter actually appears just that touch longer. And it's not asking so much for others. He's relying now more on himself. So he's become, because this is the right hand and this is what he's kind of making of himself, and what's coming into fruition materialistically, physically, practically. He's his fingers are straighter, and they're still splaying outwards. There's still this search of ideas and reaching outwards for ideas. He's still an ideas person. He'll always be an ideas person, and this is evident by the length of his logic as well. But he's more aligned now. He's finding he's becoming more able to he's self-developing, self-actualizing. So just looking at this image here, we've got slightly more clarity with the chirology aspect of his palms, and you can see here this is his right hand, and you can see a relatively straight heart line. It stops under Saturn, and again this it's a little bit short, which shows again this perhaps this sort of selfishness. I feel a bit mean saying that, because there are some elements of him that are very sort of open, and he's trying. You can see that he's trying to be a better, but he's trying to be a good person. I don't think he's a bad person, but I think by his very nature, he's quite sort of inward, and I actually think that's because as a result of what he's been through. He's been through actually some pretty tough times. So I'm not trying to say negative things because of any particular way I feel about this person. I don't actually know anything about him. But his headline here, notice that it starts quite high up, which shows us the desire to succeed, ambition to succeed, and a very sort of money-minded person as well. And that's also evident by the lengths of the second phalanges of Apollo and Saturn. But, that goes hand in hand with being a numbers person. You've got to be money-minded in the kind of career that he's had, and is still having. So the headline starts quite high, and it's sort of heading towards this place of planning and financial security. He's working towards building his fortress, and that's fine, nothing wrong with that. But it kind of hits this point here, and it's hard to see, but there's a gigantic island. And I actually think that this is a great time of stress. I don't think that Rishi Sunak's particularly happy at the moment. I think this is a great period of depression. I think the job is immensely difficult for anyone, and I think it's really taking its toll on him. And looking at his left and his right hands, and I've really scoured the images, in his left hand, his sun line is greater than on his right, and that could mean one of a few things. Firstly, it surprised me, because I would expect to see larger sun lines on both hands. On his left, this is not the best image, but even so, you can't really see much of a sun line there. Sun line is someone's security, their happiness, their wealth, the sunshine in their life, the joy in their life. And we can't really see it on the left hand here. Can't really see it on the right hand. This is the best image of the left hand that I've got, and you can see the sun lines here. And I don't know if you can make that out. It looks as though it sort of shoots up from a heart line and veers towards the Saturn finger, which shows us one of a couple of things. I mean, a sun line that stems from the heart line indicates sometimes it's artistic career, a career, with some sort of creative background. But in this case, it's, and often what it also represents is someone's success that is supported by a relationship, their spouse, and their success comes from a little later in life, from the age of around 53 onwards. In this case, it's around the age of early 40s onwards, because you can see here it's directly linked to the heart line. This is a direct link. His success is directly linked to his wife. That's what I'm getting from this. And there's also a smaller other success line up here, and it looks like that's linked towards potential inheritance. But whilst we're on this left hand here, and probably the best image I've got, there's a lot of little things that I've noticed here. One of them is something that I'm going to reveal at the end, this lovely little line right here. And I've mentioned this in one of my videos called Lines on Fingers in Palmistry. And I'll get to what this means at the end of the video. But what I've discovered here in Rishi's palm is, first of all, early on in life, there was a period, his whole period of his early on in life was fraught with difficulties, a very, very unhappy time. And I think that generally speaking, because he's a long palm and longish fingers, he's more prone to this sort of despondency and depression than others. There's a bit of a predisposition there to that. And if you look here, you've got this line here, and it's known as a line of milieu, I think it's called. In other words, there's there's environmental factors here that have caused some poor luck early on in life, and this little line here coincides with this enormous struggle here. And it almost looks like during this time he battled, because you can see a line coming from inner Mars here, and it sort of looks like that his headline stems from inner Mars. This is a great sign because it shows us his desire to persevere and push through the difficult times and emerge out of the other side of it. Now, with these lines of milieu, I think they're called, it often shows that during this period it's a time of ill luck, but then after that period often there's a massive increase in luck afterwards to sort of make up for the poor luck this person has had. And after this time, so basically throughout all of his school years and his university years, because this is right up to the age of about 24-ish, 23, 24, it's a really rough time, not a happy time at all. And it still appears again after this time. It was still not easy. You can see another time of hardship after that again. It's a separate time. It's in a different environment, I'm sure. But again, things were not easy. And it's almost as though he's developed a secondary way of dealing with things, mentally speaking. This is his left hand, so this is a very sort of internal thing. But when you've got two headlines like this, he's got a double headline here. It's the outer one, the upper one up here, is how he appears in the public eye. It's how he appears to his friends and outside of the home life. And this inner one here is how he appears to his loved ones, his closest friends, and his wife and family. And the second one is a more imaginative, it's more melancholic, it's more depressive state of mind. He feels safer and able to be his truer self to his closer loved ones, and this is his truer self. He is actually not this sort of chirpy, happy person we see at home. In reality, he's really weighed down by the things he's been through and the immense pressure of his job that he's got now. And when we see, if you look at the career line here, I mean, just on the note of double headlines, it shows an ability to, again, more adaptability. It's an excellent sign. It also shows high, sort of mental function. He's an academic, as I say. He's a numbers man. He's a bit of a scientist. He's a natural mathematician, and that's evident by this sort of double headline as well. But it's very common with people that are in the public eye, that are very conscious of that public eye as well, and that desire to get away. And in general here, the little finger is always leaning away, left or right, and it's more on the left, which shows this sort of insecurity around the cameras as well. He's he's constantly moving in his mind from idea to idea, but he prefers the isolation and works better alone. And that's because, again, you've always got a gap here, left or right hand. And if he was left to his own devices, because of the overall, splayed out fingers, not in every image, he would probably, he wouldn't adhere to the limitations set out, and he would kind of run amok. So he needs a little bit of, he needs to listen to his advisors, and I think he recognises that. I think that his learning and understanding this is through his palms now, that he actually, there is a lot that he doesn't understand, and that there are reasons why there are certain things in place. So if he was left to his own devices, he'd probably he would fight against these limitations, and as I've said, because of this, high amount of ideas that are not, that's terrible. This, because of the broad topped spatula element to his palm, he would likely fire out idea after idea, and a lot of them wouldn't work, and he would push through zealously anyway, with perseverance, and fight against any opposition, any sort of opposition to his ideas. So it's good that he's got, he's listening to his advisors, and that I think that he listens to his wife as well, and I think that actually she has a strong handle on the situation and what's going on, and to some degree I think that she is also running the country as well. I mean, I've not looked at her palms, but I'm just kind of guesstimating a little bit here, making assumptions. So really, Rishi Sunak is suited to a career experimenting with statistics, experimenting with numbers, but he demands accuracy. That's very clear in his hand as well, because of this. It's very rational and logical, but he's so numbers driven. In fact, all he sees are numbers, and so I believe the reason why I feel that he's probably very depressed at the moment, and you can see here his career line. It's a one big island after the age of late 30s, right up to the late 40s. It's one big island. It's not happy. It's faded. It's just very, very stressful. And I think because he's a numbers person, all he sees are numbers. He hates waste, but he's just seeing millions and millions of pounds being wasted every single day, and he doesn't know how to stop it. And it must be, really weighing down on him, and it's pulling him down into a place of melancholy. Now, one of the reasons for this secondary island here going on from the age of around 25 to, 30, early 30s, it could be to do with this large island here on the heartline. I believe that he went through, because as I mentioned, he's got two relationship lines, and you see it better on his right palm. This first relationship, I believe he was severely heartbroken, and I think it really changed his emotional framework, his outlook, and I believe that's partly why he's kind of turned a bit more inwards and sort of defensive. And, that makes sense as to why these two fingers are so sort of close together. Sorry, that's my dog growling because another dog is evicting him from his bed. So when you have these two fingers here together, decision making and hard work kind of huddling together here to get the job done, and happiness, the Apollo finger, it's more than happiness, it's the person's talents and what makes them shine. It's their reputation and vanity. All of these things are kind of, it looks as though Apollo is just sort of left hanging on its own, and Mercury doesn't really know what to do with itself. It's sort of looking a little bit inwards. That's a good sign. The tip of Mercury it's a gentle lean there towards Mercury. That shows diplomacy, which is excellent. But we sort of see this lacking of happiness again. And so if we look at the right hand, you don't see this large island in the heartline anymore. it was almost dividing. So the right hand, this is how he's kind of repaired himself emotionally, and you can see the difference in the curvature of the heart line here as well. I mean, overall it's much straighter. So he's reflected, and I think he's now kind of put a wall up. And now he's found his wife, it's sort of, okay, I've got my priorities now, I don't need anything else, no one else matters. And that's the kind of approach, and it's a self-defense mechanism because of the awful things I think he's been through. I mean, at least there's no doubting in how awful it felt for him because of what we've seen in the left hand. The things that he's been through affected him brutally. Deep unhappiness. And you can see it in his left hand here, the way the heartline, that could be what this is here. The crease is so indented, it's so profound, it affected him so much that it almost, the heartline starts anew afterwards. Because I have mentioned that this is directly linked to his success, but then this could also actually be the heartline reaching towards the headline in response, this emotional response. The heart's asking the head for logical direction here. What do I do here? This is too hard for me to deal with. And that could be this moment of heartbreak here. And that's what the heart's doing. I don't know exactly what's going on here. It's almost as though Luna is highly pronounced, and it's unusual for a headline. So just looking at this image here, I'm trying to make sense of it, because it sort of looks as though on the left hand here we don't have a double headline at all. I mean, I knew we didn't have one on the right, and I know we've got a double fate line on the right hand, but it looks as though we've got a double fate line on the left as well. So I'm not entirely certain this is deceptive, but there's a career that stems from Luna. That makes sense, a career in the public eye. And then there's a career that stems down from this place of hard work and doing the right thing, and they both kind of converge and create this island. I would say that's a fish, but it's not, is it? Because it carries on. And this line here, which I thought initially was a double headline, which would make sense for who he is. Perhaps I've got him all wrong though. Perhaps this isn't this sort of secretive, depressive attitude at all. Perhaps this is a double lifeline instead that joins the fate line, and that's quite common, lifelines joining fate lines and becoming one and the same. A double lifeline would make perfect sense, because not that he's necessarily got a double life, but a double lifeline often appears on people's palms who have a partner who has a much higher income. So that makes much more sense now. And the fact that we've got a double fate line on the left and the right palm is an excellent sign. This is a really positive sign. Apologies, by the way, for getting that wrong. I thought this was connected here, but actually it's not. And this is part of the problem with these images I'm collecting offline. This is the best one I've got, and yet it's still quite blurry. It's just very difficult to analyze with accuracy the chirology aspect of the palms. But this is an excellent factor because it means that there's an extra amount of assistance and extra fortune in succeeding. And so, although I have said that that he's going through a period of depression right now, that's not to say that I think that this will stop this person, because I have sort of touched on a few times here that he has an adaptability about him and a way to persevere and find a way around his problems. And this is partly because he's a constant ideas person. He's intelligent enough and has the perseverance to push through, and he will come out of it, and he'll recover, because you can see, although he's initially he's heading towards a place of planning and money, and he kind of hits this obstacle, and then things get start turning south. Literally, his mental framework, his mental health takes a hit from the role he's doing. It comes back up again. And all in all, if we start here and end here, this is a good thing. And a person who has a headline that reaches the entire width of the palm is one of the signs of fame. But it represents someone whose actions affect the lives of many. Now, as promised, I'm going to get to the juicy bit of info which I discovered earlier on. So, just to sort of summarize here, Rishi Sunak is not a team player. He's a bit of a loner. He's a bit of a mathematician. He's not a born leader. However, he is learning and he's developing into, I believe, the leader that this country needs. I can't believe I'm saying that. But he's becoming a better person. He's becoming a better leader. Let's just lead with that. And what is certainly evident is that he's ambitious, and he has a lot of signs of success and the ability to succeed. And partly that's due to having quite a high headline, and the length of his headline shows a very analytical person, shows someone who's cautious. He's not cautious, but he's willing to think things through and read the fine print before making a decision. But the conic fingers overall show that he is able to think in the moment as well, and that's crucial for any leader. The other things here that are aiding in success are the two fate lines on both hands, and this angle of proficiency. And this will allow him this extra ability to kind of work his way around problems, find a way around his issues. Where I think this person would benefit is by gaining more confidence, expanding their social network, and experiencing life through other people's eyes in order to understand those wider issues that he's perhaps not able to see. And I think he is doing these things slowly. He's changing into a more giving person. But this lifeline, well, that's a terrible line. This lifeline, it's quite sort of closed in, and that shows someone who doesn't have, the overall Venus mount is quite small, and so the pleasures in his life are quite limited, and that's sort of evident by the lacking, the flattened and kind of weak sun mount and lines. So he really needs to expand his horizons and in these areas, and I think he'll be a happier person. I think he'll be better for it. He'll be more developed and able to develop further from those experiences. Now, here's the protein. I'll give it to you. This little beast right here. This and it's seemingly meaningless, isn't it? Just this one little line here, I believe, could well be a sign of military success. In the right hand particularly, and I know we're looking at the left here, it means honours achieved in sort of military success. It means success through, let's see. In the right hand, it means success gained through, being or audacity in military career, success through military achievements. And in the left hand, this I suppose means he has an inherent ability to for the military tactics, and this is evident by relatively straight headline. It's all the way across the palm. Excellent. The relatively straight heartline as well. This certainly helps because his decisions aren't governed by his emotions, and that's what every military tactician needs. And so, with this in mind, as well as this success that's later on in life, and a success line that kind of veers towards the career and sort of points towards this line here, I think it's possible that Rishi Sunak may actually become involved in leading this country into some sort of military conflict and be successful in doing that. That I didn't expect, because we don't see here, as I've said, a natural leader. We don't really see someone with a great deal of self-assurance and or any massive amount of conviction well, actually, I'm not too convinced about that. I'm going back on myself a little bit here. He has got conviction. This sort of drawn in second phalange of the thumb here shows again diplomacy, and if he didn't have this angle here, I would think that actually he would be too. This is a sign that he's scared to ruffle feathers, and it might be the case, but I don't actually think now that he does have a lack of conviction with his ideas. I think he will push through because of everything else that I've said, because of the way that he's pushed through before and persevered before and come out of the other side of his situations. So it's not been a terribly accurate reading today. I've kind of gone back on myself a couple of times and I've made a big error here about the headline earlier on. Sorry about that, but that's the nature of these Sunday case studies. Like I say, these images aren't great. In any case, I hope that's made some sense. I hope that was as revelatory for you as it was for me. I think that Rishi Sunak will lead this country into some sort of military conflict and succeed. And I think he'll be remembered for that. And I think that's how, in a way, he'll gain a bit more confidence and gain some experience and insights into the wider issues that he's perhaps missing at the moment. So there we go. That's it for this week, and I hope you've enjoyed. Please comment below. I'm enjoying all the feedback. I need the feedback, and I really appreciate all the shares, all the likes, and all the subscriptions. So I'll see you on the next one. Thank you.